Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive.
It's great to be here.
Today we're going to be taking a look at artificial intelligence,
AI, the big one.
Yeah, it seems like you can't go anywhere these days without hearing about AI. And specifically, we want to look at the impact it's having on the enterprise software market.
Right? How are businesses actually going to use this stuff?
Yeah.
And who's going to be making money off it?
Exactly.
That's what people want to know, right? Where's the opportunity here?
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, it's going to be huge, but it's still kind of early days, right? So
Still lots of questions.
we're going to try and make some sense of it for you today.
Absolutely.
We've been looking at a really interesting article from The Motley Fool, came out just yesterday, March 16th, 2025.
Fresh off the press.
And they're looking at two companies in particular, Palantir Technologies and Microsoft, and
Both big players.
yeah, both big players, but kind of coming at this from different angles, right?
Different approaches, different strengths.
Yeah, and I think what we want to do is help you understand who might be better positioned right now.
Yeah, if you're thinking about, getting in on the ground floor.
Who's got the edge maybe at this moment?
Who should you be watching?
Exactly. So let's jump right into it. This Motley Fool article, it starts off with, really kind of setting the stage about how big this market is expected to get.
I mean, mind-boggling numbers.
Yeah, almost hard to wrap your head around.
ABI Research, they're projecting that the enterprise AI software market will go from $98 billion in 2024 to $391 billion by 2030.
That's almost quadrupling in size.
Hockey stick.
Yeah, in just 6 years. So even if it doesn't hit those numbers exactly,
Right.
you can see it's going to be a big deal.
It's going to be massive.
And they say that the generative AI part of that is going to be growing even faster.
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting, right? Generative AI. So we're talking about things like those AI agents that can write code or create presentations.
Mm-hmm. Things that, just a couple years ago, we were like, is that even possible?
And now it's like, here it is,
Yeah, suddenly it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is real. And it's
This is happening.
yeah, and this article that they're saying Palantir and Microsoft are right there at the forefront of this.
Leading the charge.
Yeah, they're the ones to watch.
Absolutely.
And what's kind of interesting for investors is both of their stocks have come down a bit recently.
Yeah, they've had a little bit of a pullback.
So some people might see that as a buying opportunity.
Could be a chance to get in at a lower price.
Yeah, so let's talk about these two companies in a little more detail and maybe start with Palantir because they're,
They're a bit of a more mysterious company, I think, for a lot of people.
yeah, maybe not as well known as Microsoft, right?
Right.
So for those who are maybe not familiar with Palantir, what is it that they actually do?
So at their core, what they do is they build software that helps organizations make sense of all the data they have.
Okay, so big data analytics.
Yeah, you can think of it that way, but they go beyond just analyzing data.
Okay.
They really focus on deriving actionable insights.
So not just telling you what the data says, but telling you what you should do with it?
Exactly. They're trying to help you make decisions, solve problems.
And how does their artificial intelligence platform, AIP, fit into all this?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. AIP is all about using large language models.
Now, what are those exactly?
Basically, they're super advanced AI that have been trained on massive amounts of text data.
So they can understand and generate human language.
Right. And this is key for Palantir because it allows them to make their data analysis accessible to a wider audience.
So you don't need to be a data scientist to use it.
Exactly. You can just ask the system a question in plain English, and it'll give you an answer.
That's pretty cool.
It is. And the article highlights how AIP has been a real game changer for Palantir. Their financial performance has really taken off in the last couple of years.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty impressive. In 2024, their revenue grew by 29% year over year, and their adjusted operating margin, which is basically how profitable their core operations are, jumped from 28% to 39%.
That's a big jump in profitability.
And it didn't stop there. In the fourth quarter of 2024, their revenue growth accelerated to 36%, and their operating margin hit 45%.
Wow, so they're gaining momentum.
Yeah, and their management seems really optimistic about the future. They're projecting a 31% revenue growth for 2025, and they expect their operating margin to climb even higher to 42%.
That's strong growth. And if you're thinking about investing in software companies, this is what you want to see, because once they've built the software, the cost of adding new customers is relatively low. Mm-hmm. So as they grow their revenue, a bigger chunk of that becomes profit.
So their profit margins tend to expand as they scale.
Exactly.
The article also talks about Palantir's CEO, Alex Karp, and his product-first approach.
Yeah, they've really focused on building a really high-quality, sophisticated product, even if that meant targeting a smaller number of clients at first.
So they were kind of going after the deep pockets early on.
Right, and those early clients were mostly in the government sector, especially the U.S. military.
Makes sense. Those are organizations that really need to make sense of massive amounts of data and have the resources to pay for it.
And by focusing on those demanding customers early on, they were able to build a really robust platform.
And then with AIP, they were able to take that technology and make it more accessible to a wider range of businesses.
Yeah, so now they're trying to expand their commercial client base.
Okay, so government and commercial are their two main customer segments.
Right, but historically government has been the dominant one. Those government contracts tend to be long-term and stable, so it gives them a really solid revenue base.
But the article does mention some potential challenges for Palantir going forward.
Like what?
Well, geopolitical instability, the world's a bit of a messy place right now, and that could lead to some uncertainty in government spending.
That's true. Governments might be more hesitant to sign big contracts if they're not sure what the future holds.
And then there's the possibility of government spending cuts, especially in the U.S. There's always talk about reducing the defense budget.
Yeah, and if that happens, it could obviously impact Palantir's government business.
But the article also presents a kind of counterintuitive argument that budget cuts could actually benefit Palantir.
How so?
Well, the idea is that if the military or other government agencies have to do more with less, they might become even more reliant on software like Palantir's to help them be more efficient.
It's like technology becomes even more essential when you have fewer resources.
Exactly. So it could be a case of, tightening budgets actually driving demand for their products.
Interesting. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and to offset any potential slowdown in government spending, Palantir is really pushing to grow their commercial business.
Makes sense they need to diversify their revenue streams.
And they're doing things like hosting this AIPCon event to try and attract more commercial clients.
Right, showcasing how AIP can solve real business problems across different industries.
Okay, so now we have to talk about what the article calls the big problem for Palantir, their valuation.
Ah, yes, the elephant in the room.
Yeah, so for someone who's maybe not a financial expert, what does that actually mean?
Well, basically it means their stock is trading at a really high price relative to their earnings and revenue.
Okay, so like they're priced for perfection.
Kind of, yeah. As of the time of this article, they're trading at over 70 times their 2024 revenue. And even looking ahead to 2025, it's still around 55 times their projected sales.
So investors are expecting huge growth to continue for a long time.
Yeah, and if that growth slows down, the stock price could drop pretty significantly.
So it's a high-risk, high-reward situation.
Definitely.
All right, so let's move on to Microsoft. Now, they're obviously a much bigger and more established company than Palantir, but how are they approaching AI in the enterprise software market?
Well, they've taken a bit of a different approach. They made a huge splash with that $10 billion investment in OpenAI back in early 2023.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
And that move really positioned them as a leader in two key areas: cloud computing with their Azure platform, and of course their existing suite of enterprise software products.
And Azure seems to be a really important part of their AI strategy, right?
Absolutely. Businesses need both the raw computing power and the sophisticated AI models to build their own AI applications, and Azure provides all of that.
And how's that part of their business performing?
Doing incredibly well. Their revenue from Azure AI services grew by 157% year over year in the most recent quarter.
Wow, that's some serious growth.
It is, and it contributed to their overall cloud segment growing by 31%.
So they're clearly capitalizing on the demand for cloud-based AI solutions.
Yeah, and they're saying that demand is actually outstripping their current capacity.
So there's potential for even more growth once they build out more infrastructure.
Exactly, and to that end, they're making a massive investment, like $80 billion in capital expenditures this year, mostly for AI data centers.
That's a lot of money, but I guess it shows how serious they are about this.
Yeah, they're going all in on AI.
And it's not just about Azure, right? They're also using AI to power their own products, like their Copilot suite of AI assistants.
Yeah, Copilot is their way of bringing AI directly into the software that businesses are already using.
So like GitHub for developers, Microsoft 365 for Office Productivity Dynamics 365 for business management.
Exactly. They're integrating AI across their entire product line.
And then there's Copilot Studio, which seems like a really interesting tool for businesses.
Yeah, it allows companies to create custom AI agents using their own data so they can automate specific tasks and get insights that are tailored to their own operations.
So they can basically build their own AI solutions without having to start from scratch.
Exactly.
The article mentions that early adoption of Copilot has already had a positive impact on Microsoft's productivity and business processes division.
So it's starting to show up in their financials.
Yeah, now when you compare their overall growth rate to Palantir's, it's not quite as explosive.
True. Palantir's numbers are definitely higher right now.
But the article points out that Microsoft's valuation is a lot more reasonable.
Yeah, and that's a key consideration for investors.
So what does that mean in terms of numbers?
Well, Microsoft is currently trading at less than 11 times its trailing sales, and about 29 times what analysts expect their earnings per share to be next year.
And how does that compare to their historical valuation?
It's actually below their average multiple since the start of 2021.
So even though they're a leader in this red-hot AI market, they're not priced at a huge premium.
And the article makes the case that given their strong position in both cloud AI and enterprise software, they arguably deserve a premium valuation.
So at these levels, their stock might be a good buy.
That's the argument they're making.
Okay, so to kind of sum it all up, the article seems to be suggesting that Microsoft might be a better investment right now than Palantir.
Yeah, they're both well positioned to benefit from the growth of the AI market. But Microsoft's more reasonable valuation makes them a more attractive option, according to this analysis.
So for our listeners who are trying to make sense of all this, what are the key takeaways here?
Well, first off, the enterprise AI software market is about to explode. So if you're looking for investment opportunities, this is an area you need to be paying attention to.
And within that market, Palantir and Microsoft are two of the leading players.
But they have different strengths and approaches. Palantir is growing really fast, but they come with a high valuation. Microsoft is growing at a slower pace, but they're more diversified and have a more reasonable valuation.
And it's important to remember that this is just one analysis from one source.
Exactly. This is based on the Motley Fool article from March 16, 2025. The situation could change.
Things are moving fast in the AI world.
Absolutely.
So here's a question for our listeners to think about. As you're considering your own investment goals and your risk tolerance, which of these two approaches to the AI market feels like a better fit for you? The potential for high growth, but also high volatility with Palantir, or the more diversified and, according to this analysis, more reasonably priced approach of Microsoft?
It's a tough choice, but that's what makes investing so interesting.
And of course, we always encourage you to do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Don't just take our word for it.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.